Hi everybody, it's Keren here from tuppencecolored.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining me, and this is what I've been making today. So this is it. The festive season will be on us before we know it, and I always like to do something that is just a little bit more substantial than the usual Christmas card. So here it is. It is an MDF ornament, and I've decorated it in a festive way. Stay with me, I'll show you what I did. This is an MDF blank in the shape of a Christmas bauble. I think I got this particular one from eBay a couple of years ago, and I've just ordered another 5 or 10 of them from Amazon. Not very expensive at all. I think it worked out to about 80 pence each. And ahead of time, because it takes a while to for everything to dry, I've given it a couple of coats of white gesso and a coat of white acrylic. So the gesso is there to stop the paint from soaking in to the MDF, because untreated MDF will just absorb everything that you throw at it, and the white acrylic is to give me a nice clean white surface, because this is going to be a snow scene. So here I have a piece of masking paper. This happens to be Eclipse masking paper. Any masking paper will do, or if you can't get hold of masking paper, then something like super sticky post-it notes, the kind that are sticky all over, or the sticky back plastic that you use for covering books. Now, when I was a student, the sticky back plastic that we used for covering books was very, very sticky, and it was a lot thicker than what you get nowadays. But the stuff that you get these days seems to have less powerful stick and to be quite a bit thinner. But just in case, I would test it on something that doesn't really matter before you get started. Okay, so I'm just trying to decide where I want to mask off, because wherever I mask off, this part is going to be my snow, and up there is going to be my sky, and I want a nice amount of both. Alright, so I think I'm happy with that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of my makeup brushes, and I'm going to start with my palest colour, which is Seaside Spray. And actually what I'm going to do before I even put that down, now I'm happy with where I want it, I'm going to start with a little bit of Seaside Spray, and I'm going to put it onto my blending mat, and I'm just going to go all around the edges. Now there's going to be a lot of blending and not much going on in this particular tutorial, so I do hope that you will forgive me if from time to time I go quiet and I just do a little bit of fast forwarding and put some music on. Okay, so just want a little bit round the edge there, just to define the shape. And now I'm going to put my paper mask on. Now the other thing you could do, if you didn't have either masking paper, post-it notes, or sticky back plastic, but you did have Tombow glue, you could spread some Tombow glue onto a piece of ordinary paper and let the adhesive set, and then when you do that, it becomes repositionable. So I have to be quite honest that Tombow is not really my favourite adhesive, you know, sorry, but that's the way it is. But it is very versatile for things like that. Okay, so I've put down my layer of Seaside Spray, and I'm going to pretty much go all over my bauble. So that's going to be my my lightest shade. And, right, so I think next I'll have a little bit of Highland Heather. Same brush, putting it down on my splodge mat. If you don't have a splodge mat, piece of plastic will do. If you slip a bit of paper inside a one of those poly wallets you use for keeping documents in, that'll work. Don't strictly need the piece of paper, but it will help you to see where you're going and what you've done. Okay, so I'm leaving a bit of the Seaside Spray in the middle because I want it to look like there's maybe moonrise is coming up over the hill, and that's quite pretty. And let's have a go. What's next? So shall we go with the gorgeous grape next? Now this time I've taken it directly from the stamp pad just to show you that you can. And that's going to give me quite a deep colour. And I want to blend that out a bit, so I'm going to take a clean brush. And what that will do is it will move the colour but it won't add any more. Okay. Okay, and now some Night of Navy. So which is my used brush? Is this one? Okay, now this is quite an intense colour, so I'm going to go carefully with this one. She says, go carefully, she says, and puts down like half a ton of it. And the clean brush again. And blend those in so that the sides are nice and blended. And let's go back to my Seaside Spray. And I'm picking up a clean brush. And I'm bringing that in. And can you see how it's moving the colours here for me? Just moved that one a bit too much. So. I'm going to carry on building up the colour around the sides of the bauble here. So a nice intense colour. And because the surface that I'm going on to here isn't particularly absorbent, I'm going to give this some time for everything to dry out. So gorgeous grape again. And just building up layers of colour. Move my scissors and that piece of paper out of the way. So I'm just building up layers of colour till I've got a nice intense colour where I want it. And something that's a bit less intense where I don't. Seriously, Misty, do you have to scratch your head off right now? Okay. So I'm kind of getting to what I want. I think I want a little bit more dark blue. Just building it and building it and building it. And I'm going to leave that for the ink to dry. The surface is not terribly absorbent, so it's going to take a little minute for this to dry. If I wanted to hurry it up, I could take my heat gun to it and give it a bit of a blast. But I think that is going to do me for now, so I'm just going to stop there. That's had some time for 3, 2, 1. That's had some time for the ink to dry, and I also gave it a quick blast of my hairdryer. So if I take away my masking paper now, you can see that I've got this nice contour that's going to be my hill. Just reaching over to get another piece of contour, my other piece of contour paper here. Now this is the other half of the paper that I used, and I'm just putting it there just in case that ink is still a little bit wet, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of the Seaside spray, and I'm just going to just very lightly, starting on the paper, just kind of defining that edge just a little bit. Not a lot, just, you know, just a little bit, maybe a little bit more in the edges here. When I take that away, you can see that that's just kind of defined the edge just a little bit more. So now I'm going to take that paper, just trying to think what sort of hills I want, what direction I want them going in. Just having a little bit of a think here. So I think around about like that. And again, on one of my makeup brushes, and I'm just going along the edge, starting on the paper and working on to the background. And I've picked up some of the ink that was on the masking paper there, which I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. It's a look. Okay, so that's added in some snowy hills. Just trying to think, do I want another one? Do I want one coming along there? Or would that be too much? Let's just have a little one. Right, now I am going to put that on one side for that ink to get good and dry. And that's had overnight for all of the ink to dry, so I can now run my finger over it, and don't do that because the ink does come off on it. So yeah, I've given this all night for the ink to dry, and I'm ready now to do some stamping onto it. So I'm going to be using this stamp, which is from Winter Woods to begin with, and I'm going to use my Stamparatus to help me. So I'm going to start by positioning that Christmas tree about in the middle of my Stamparatus plate, and I'm just going to pick it up. And I'm going to be using Memento Tuxedo Black. Now the first pass of this, if you like, is just going to be to establish the position of it. So I'm not too fussy about how the quality turns out. And yeah, that could be a lot darker actually, because my memento probably does need a bit of re-inking. Okay, so ahead of time, I prepared myself a template. So what I did was I took the bauble, I traced around it, and then I cut it out. And I think around about there is going to be a good place for the image. So that will help me to get my image positioned where I want it on the bauble. So let me bring in the bauble, and I'm just going to place that into my template. And I'm going to turn that around because I don't want to get my piece of washi tape caught in to my stamped image, because that would not be fun. Alright, so I'm giving this a good coat of ink, and I'm going to stamp. Now the bauble, being made of MDF, is a little bit thicker than you know, your normal paper or card that you'd be stamping on. So that's why I've positioned it more over this way, so that I'm not putting too much pressure on the hinge over here. And I'm giving it plenty of ink, and that is my first impression. And I'm going to give it another coat, as it were. And yeah, I'm happy with that, so I'm going to give that some time for the memento to dry. I've given this a little bit of a blast with my heat gun, just to get it dry enough to the point where I can put the mask back over it. It's not fully dry yet, and the reason why I've done that is because I want to stamp these two trees, which are from Rooted in Nature, onto the bauble. So I've already done the work in setting up where I want them on my piece of scrap. So I'm going to bring in my my bauble, which I'm having trouble remembering how to say, and I'm just taking the mask and I'm just putting it just slightly below that curve, okay? Not right on it, just slightly below it. And I'm going to ink up the stamp. Now, I don't normally use, or I try not to use, stamps from two different sets in a project. And to be honest, you'd be absolutely fine if you just left it with that one tree. But these stamps are so lovely. So how's that looking? Yeah. A little bit more ink, I think. But not too much, because they're further away. And therefore we want them to look a little bit paler. Okay, now I am going to put this on one side, somewhere where the cat can't get at it, and I'm going to let that get good and dry before I move on to the next step. That's had a nice long time to dry, a couple of days in fact, and now I'm going to just enhance it a little bit further with a little bit of white acrylic paint. Tiny little bit, and I've got a small paintbrush here, and I'm just going to, just here and there on the boughs of the tree, I'm going to add in some snow. Now it shows up better on the higher branches because they have got the dark blue behind them, and I'm trying to not make it too symmetrical. because then that's going to look quite artificial, isn't it? And we don't want that, we want them to look nice and natural. And I'm just going back over where I don't think I've got quite enough depth. Okay, so there's that one. And now over here, just a few little dabs with my paintbrush, just to make it look like snow is clinging to the branches of the trees. And if I need to give it a second coat, I'm going to give it a second coat. Okay, doesn't really matter. Now if I wanted to, this is where I could get a tiny little bit of glue here and there, and maybe drop some iridescent glitter onto the tree. And I'm quite happy with that. Now I've got a smaller brush, a rigger brush, and I'm just going to just put some dots here and there. For stars. And I'm trying to do smaller ones and bigger ones. Make that a nice big bright one. That could be a planet. And now I've got some Wink of Stella. Not sure how well, see if I can get into the light. You see, yes, you can see where it's just catching the light there. Okay, so I am nearly done. Got one last thing to do. And that is, I want to paint the side of the bauble. And I've got some gold paint here. Now this is a kind of gold paint that Stampin' Up used to sell. Don't carry the gold any longer, but any gold paint or gold marker pen that you've got would work. And this is a bit of an experiment actually. I haven't actually done this before. I'm experimenting with it live on camera. And I'm using an eyeshadow applicator to apply the paint, and it's going on quite well. As long as I can keep my fingers out of it, that would be good. This needs some time for everything to dry, and when it's had that time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clear sealer spray. This one is a matte finish, and I'm not going to do it on camera because I'm going to take it outside. I'm going to put this into a cardboard box to use as a shield, and I'm going to wear a mask, and I'm going to give it a couple of light coats of the sealer with some time in between for everything to dry. So I'm going to go and do that, and I will be back when all of that has happened. It's taken me a very, very long time to actually finish this tutorial because as I was filming it, that was when my husband's condition deteriorated very suddenly, and if you've been following my social media, then you will know that we actually lost him. So it's been a little bit difficult around here just lately, and I don't want to burden you with all of that. I just want to say that for a while I really didn't feel like doing any crafting at all, although I am slowly returning to it, but I don't know whether it will be with the same kind of frequency that I have in the past. So you know, if I post a tutorial, I post a tutorial. If I don't, I don't. So just to let you know what I did to finish off this what do you want to call it, ornament, I suppose. I just took a piece of the spotted tulle, Whisper White ribbon and tied it in a bow, and I also took some of the Whisper White crinkled seam binding, and that one is actually a double bow. Stuck them together and glued them on to the MDF with hot glue. And then this is a piece of the silver and white and a balmy blue. Is it balmy blue? I think it's balmy blue. Twine that's in the, I believe it's in the autumn winter catalogue. Don't hold me to it, guys, because my head is completely in the shed. But I just did want to finish off this project and post it because I did put quite a bit of work into it, and I am very pleased with the way it turned out. So it will probably either hang on my Christmas tree or it will be given away to a friend. So that is it for today. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I would love it if you kept your eye open to see if I'm going to be posting anything again in the immediate future. But for now, once again, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope I'll see you again sometime. Bye bye.